This is like it's all I need. How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay. So you're good, right? I can go.
Yes, please, where's the remote?
It is not working. So you mostly use your hand. You're using our hand. Although the remote is in the back, in case you want to retest it. So. In case you have check.
And it's not about your fault.
No,
You have the website. I mean the email.
How do this? Is there
email. So they send an email to. So can you go to your?
Okay.
So that I can send my PowerPoint.
You will use this, right? So this is
Yes.
connected.
Okay.
But in case that you use your phone.
Okay. Email.
Yes.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning,
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah. So this is.
Okay.
Hey, who have you sent them to?
No, it's myself.
Oh, okay. But it's from
Yeah. Yes, I hear.
at gmail.com.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So I'm calling right.
At
107.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
I hear.
Number?
Yes, it is. Okay, you can send this to the mail now.
Okay.
Are you ready?
John.
Because we are. It's 9. Money, sir.
Network.
Is that what? Okay, you can connect to my hotspot. Huh? Yeah, yes. Yeah? Galaxy 8, yes.
This hello? Yes. Yeah, can you hear me?
The chair is already online.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. 107.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Is this speaking? Okay. So I'm thinking of I don't know how many of us are presenting this morning. If
Okay,
everyone
so
is there, those
are there other presenters?
I think there are four presenters this morning.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, actually, it's supposed to be 5. You are presenting, sir, right?
Yeah,
Then,
does it make it 5? Oh, I thought it's 4.
yes,
Maybe I
yes,
must
yes.
have
And we
miscalculated.
have just one person in the room. Are you presenting? We have just one person in the room.
Oops. Okay. I know I sent an email to all the presenters, and I think one person also is not there physically, and I think she might be joining online. I don't know if she's there
Right.
already. I don't have control over the admission of
No, the person that
people.
just joined direct here. So, no
Did
one is
somebody just
online.
join?
Nobody. Just you.
Okay. Then the other thing is, I just found out I'm not able to share my slides.
Okay, okay. You can ask for permission, then I'll allow you.
Okay. Yeah, I've sent the request. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So what next? I guess we should start. I don't know. Who is in the room? Sorry, so I can know the name.
Will you stay there?
Yeah, don't wait.
There, yes.
What's the name? Sorry.
Dominic.
Don't James.
Dominic.
Yes,
James.
James.
Okay. Let me put on my video. So I was thinking somebody on ground should chair the session, so it's easier to handle than spirits that are online. What do you think?
I think you can go on. It's fine, sir. It's just one
All
person that is
right.
and he's trying to send the slide, so still quite busy.
Okay. Okay, that's all right. So let's hope that others will join us soon. While let me get the presentations ready. So let me know once you're ready so we can start. Since we have just 2 people, we'll see how that goes. Um, Can we check if there's anybody else online who is trying to join?
There's nobody here, sir.
Okay. Do we have any other person in the room who is also presenting this morning? Um, let's know so that we know how many people we're taking.
Okay. It's just still one person that is here.
Okay, maybe we should just start because time is going. We are how many minutes late now? 12 minutes late.
Yes.
Is Dominic ready? Okay, maybe we should just start. And then Dominic, I guess we'll make a presentation for 15 minutes so we can have time to discuss afterwards. Is that okay by you?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to time you, and somebody else will time you when I'm going to talk so that I don't overshoot the time. And then afterwards, every one of us make contributions, ask questions. So the next presentation will come after yours. So this morning, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to this panel, Comparative African Politics, Nationalism, and Pan-Africanism, Part 2. So we're so happy that you were able to join us this morning. We are supposed to have 5 presentations this morning, but interestingly, I think 2 people are available to make presentations. So we're happy you're here with us. The format we are going to take is to have these presentations go first, and afterwards we can have our discussions. So I'd encourage us to write down our questions and observations and contributions and whatever we want to do,
I think
and
we just
then
have
we can have this
we just have,
afterwards. Sorry,
we just have to present like that.
I didn't hear what you said.
We couldn't get the
Right.
we couldn't get the PowerPoint across for sharing.
Oh, you mean yours?
Yes, my PowerPoint. We couldn't pass it
Okay.
across.
Okay, so you just want to speak, talk to the paper, I guess.
Yes. Because of
Okay,
time.
that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, so the first presentation we're having this morning is from Dominic James Aboy from Ahmadu Bello University, and is titled Ecological Relations and Underbelly Politics in the Global South. I didn't start from the beginning. Yams do not sprout amulets, ecological relations and underbelly politics in the global south. So thank you so much. You can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Good morning to us all. The title of my paper, I'm Dominic James Aboy from Ahmadu Bello University. The title of my paper is Yams Do Not Sprout Amulets, Ecological Relations and Underbelly Politics in the Global South. The argument here is I'm going to use 2 works of, I'm going to use a work by Helen Habila, Oil and Water, and I'm going to look at the eco-critical intimations that he was able to bring. But beginning from my presentation, I have 2 quotations from which I was able to call the topic. Must I weep for goat and cowries, for palm oil and sprinkled ash? Yams do not sprout amulets to earth Abiku's limbs. This is from Shoyinka's Abiku. And here, Abiku is protesting that you cannot use yams in order to hold him down to stay on earth. It means there are things that we shouldn't think is possible, because people look for the impossible where the possible is not there. So he is talking about a metaphysical space that earthly things like yams and all that are being sacrificed cannot keep him on earth, but he's looking at something transcendental. And in my own topic, I was able to say yams do not sprout out amulets, in the sense that ecological issues do not fall from the sky. They do not happen in absentia. They do not happen without our knowledge. And with that, I want to quote from the Algebra of Infinite Justice by Arundhati Roy. She said, how can you measure progress if you didn't know what it cost and who paid for it? Now we are looking at environmental degradation. We are looking at ecological issues, especially in oil regions like the Niger Delta, and as well as the kind of politics that unravel or unfold in such places. And in my introduction, I'm of the opinion that the issues of ecology in Africa, they are real. They are not rumors. They are not suppositions. They are not assumptions, because most times you hear people are in denial of these issues. They say, no, it's not true. We've been living 10,000 years and we are still here. But people that are living in places where natural disasters do occur or close to the riverine areas and all that, they will testify to the fact that these things are not only real, but they require practical solutions. So, and should be taken seriously. It is on this ground that I'm going to be looking at some of the arguments that Helen Habila has been able to do in his, be able to bring up in his work. But most importantly, I want to ask the question, what is ecology and its relations? Ecology, as we know, is the study of organisms, including humans, and their interaction with each other with regards to their environment. So it's also the study of relationship between living and non-living components of the environment. It is an understanding of the interconnectedness of life and the environment and how this relationship influences the distribution and production of and behaviors of these organisms. So it is in the light of this that I want us to go straight to my thesis statement. In this light, I want to read the thesis statement because it's just a sentence. The study seeks to interrogate the relationship between humans and their physical environment and how the hunger for natural resources and demands of the capitalist market across the globe has compromised the lifestyles of marginal spaces living at the mercy of corrupt leadership in a manner that it keeps the subalternized below the belt of social, economic, and political representation. My theoretical framework is I'm using post-colonial eco-criticism. But first, what is post-coloniality? I would like to take from Edward Said's Orientalism, where he argued that the world is made up of two different unequal halves. One is the Orient and one is the Occident. And these two systems, when it is the relationship between these two systems that are being referred to as Orientalism. And he argues that Orientalism, therefore, is how corporate institutions deal with the Orient. It is a Western style of dominating, restructuring, and having authority over the Orient. Other views have been shared by Homi Bhabha in The Location of Culture. We have Ngugi wa Thiong'o in most of his books. We have Akile Mbembe in The Post-Colony and some of his books. And we have Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak. In one of her seminal essays, Can the Subaltern Speak? She's talking about subalternized nations or states. Or so to speak, she's talking about racialized people or people in the global south or people who have experienced racism and colonization, that they cannot speak, not because they cannot speak physically, but because they have been denied avenues, they have been denied platforms from which they can speak and their voice will be heard. So that denial of the platform where you could speak, that podium where you could be at decision-making tables over things that matter to you, is, if you are denied that, it means you cannot speak. It means you have been denied speech. Why I'm bringing up these things is because it contributes to the argument that we're looking at. Now that I have earlier on discussed what ecology is, and now I've given us a view of what post-coloniality is, looking at looking at Edward Said and Chakravarty, among others. I want us now to look at what is post-colonial eco-criticism. There's a book called Post-Colonial Eco-Criticism by Helen Tiffin and Graham. They made the argument that when you examine the implications of fundamental narratives, problematizing assumptions of a universal subject and of an essential nature, while examining how forms of dominance are naturalized. You see, eco-criticism, post-colonial eco-criticism, is looking at how, for instance, the global north dominate the global south and make it look like an order, and as though it's a natural order of ranking, that they are to submit whatever they have to offer, or the West can come and do whatever it wants to do with the environment, and it is normal because of the order of things, so to speak, on the chain of being. If we look at the work of Kajetan Iheka, Naturalizing Africa, Ecological Violence, Agency and Resistance in African Literature, he made similar arguments. where we are expected to be the order, and everything that is happening to Africa is as though they should take the second fiddle and all that. So on that pedestal, I want to look at what a German sociologist, Wolfgang Sachs, asserts that the international development debate tends to mimic the rise and fall of political sensibilities within the affluent northern countries, referring to the West, therefore, suggesting that the unfettered enthusiasm for economic growth in 1945 reflected the West's desire to assert and to restart the economic machine after a devastating war. We knew that people, the World War 39 to 45 have depleted the economic strength of Europe, and now they swam back like a kind of neo-colonial scramble again in order to gain back, and they went into resource control and these neo-colonial imperialists, so to speak, allow me to use the word hijacking of resources. And wherever there's natural resources or whatever it is that is of wealth buried within nature in Africa or any subaltern state or any global state, any state in the global south, you find out that people from the global north are coming to form relations or relationships in these spaces so that they can have access to this thing. So it's on this pedestal, I made the argument that the dialectics of uneven representation among other ethical and aesthetic postulations played out in distribution and exploration of natural resources, which invigorates Habila's engagement in oil and water, and therefore gives him the artistic vocabulary of protest. By vocabulary of protest here is to see how he was able to use the novel form in order to speak to these issues and in order to reply back to empire concerning all of these ecological issues and ecological degradation or despoliation that has been unfolding in the global south. So the gap elaborating the unequal relationship among the rich and the poor countries, despite the lauded doctrines of sovereignty and racial equality, confirms rich nations as determinant of what development is and when to switch it on or off, and when to switch off the engines of imperialist advantages. The aforementioned calls forth the arguments that I have earlier on quoted by Roy about you cannot tell what development is because you don't know what it has cost. So you see, the argument I'm trying to put across here is to look at this uneven relationship between the developed nation and the so-called developed nation and those that are still on undergoing development. I want to quickly say it is on this pedestal that we have the Brandt report that was able to break down the globe into the global north and the global south. And ironically, states or countries like New Zealand and Australia happen to be in the global south, but they are not thought of as global south countries. They are also seen as what advanced countries, and they are up there with the rest of the thing. Now, I have a subtitle on politics of the underbelly in the global south. Now, when dirty politics of self-interest are put across the globe, which is of the belly, gets exposed, and its filthy laundry is put out, and there's shame associated with it, people talk about the underbelly. The point I'm trying to make here is the politics of the belly is a phrase that has been popularized by Jean Bayard in The State in Africa, The Politics of the Belly. He makes this argument to describe political power relations in post-colonial Africa, in the sense that the relationship between patrimonialism, clientelism, corruption, and power are enshrined in the politics of the belly. This is a politics that is based on self-interest, politics that is calculatedly put within certain quarters. And I made mention of patrimonialism because it is a form of governance in which the ruler that governs tries to put people of either his family or group within the ruling party, so to speak, in order to take advantage of situations. So on that pedestal, haven't described or discussed what politics on the underbelly or politics of the belly. Politics of the belly is a politics that is of private interest, not of the individual and the communal interest. Why I use underbelly is because something that is shameful, something you intend to hide, is being exposed. So it becomes, when they say, I have seen your underbelly, it means I've seen something you are trying to hide. So those of the politics or the politicians that are playing the politics of the belly and getting away with it, when they get exposed, it means the politics of the belly have now been exposed. It becomes politics of the underbelly. Coming down now to our text by Helen Habila, he captured the Niger Delta story as a microcosm for spaces where resources are found, but the people and the environment are not taken care of. So he tried to narrativize this argument using oil and water. He talked about the oil spills in the region, which have threatened marine life, which has in one way or the other polluted the air, and at the same time has been causing slow deaths of humans in such spaces and bad mutations. He has talked about abandoned oil drilling, oil drills. He has talked about abandoned oil wells and without proper management, and thereby poisoning the water and making the towns, and making ghost towns out of fishing villages. If we go to such regions, we see that there are plenty, because sometimes this oil runs out and the oil, the well is allowed or left in the manner that is not in any way of advantage, is not environmental friendly or environmentally friendly. In oil and water, there is no political representation or social amenities to cater to the people of Caribbean. That is the location, the particular book that Helen was able to situate his, the particular village Helen was able to situate his argument. He made mention of how oil companies, rich oil companies, probably foreign companies, come to take advantage of the region, make millions, but they leave the environment in a way that it ends up affecting most of the people that are living there. So the narrator himself, who is a graduate, finds himself without a job and was able to just take the idea of going there to cover a story. The story we are covering here is there's the wife of a petroleum engineer who happens to be white that was kidnapped and was taken to the Niger Delta area in the creeks. And so this journalist, Rufus, and his friend, or his mentor, so to speak, Zach, they went down in order to retrieve the woman, to pay the ransom, to negotiate with the militants turned bandits. Because why I said the militant turned bandits, at the beginning, the militants were doing what we call environmentalism of the poor. Now, I'll quickly go to Slow Violence and Environmentalism of the Poor by Rob Nixon, even though he took some of the arguments from Guha. The argument is, while these things are happening to these societies, the communal effort to resist this infiltration and devastation of the environment, the community rises to the occasion in order to prevent it. So it is this resistance that is called the environmentalism of the poor. And in this case, Rob Nixon was making the argument for slow violence, in the sense that if you go to all rich regions, they suffer what we call slow violence. It's not something that will kill you immediately. It happens like in slow motion. Maybe you might have a 10 or 5 year span to die, but you might not know. Probably your well is leaking oil, what you are eating from, the fuel, the oil, gas, and flames, and what you are ingesting and inhaling. So over time, it puts you on a dead bed without knowing. So some of the arguments he is, Rob Nixon and Google, among other people that talked about the environment are making, is that it occurs slowly that you will not even notice you are on a death sentence. So, but then there used to be a collective opposition to this argument, and that collective opposition is what we call the environmentalism of the poor. In the Niger Delta, for instance, this resistance first came in the form of militancy. These people fought and said, no, we cannot accept this. You people cannot come to our region. You spill all these things and you leave it in the manner that you don't do it in your own place. And that action in itself is called environmental racism, where I will come to your house and scatter it in the manner that I will not condone in my own house. You can imagine sometimes people come to your house and they eat, or they sleep in your house and they leave the bed and go. That's exactly what sometimes some of these oil explorers do in some of the regions of the country. They come in search of these natural resources. They look through it, they get these things, and if the oil runs out, there's what we call the cleanup of the environment and maintenance and all that. They don't do it because they know they will not be held accountable. They just leave it like that and they go away. So scholars have come to say that this actually is racist and is environmental racism, because in their own place they will not try it and they will, and let alone think of it. But because this is the assumed global south, the third world, so to speak, some of these things they think could be permissible and they can get away with it. There's something that has been happening within the body of the work. The people of Iriake village are having an exodus because most of the oils spillage have poisoned their rivers, so they don't have fish, a sufficient village. And that means their source of livelihood has been cut off. And Helen Habila here is looking at this idea that maybe if I put this into writing, it shows a rejection of economically profitable projects to avoid resource extraction and the endangering of livelihoods. So if we look at his book, we see it as a protest, as an environmental activism that centers the environment in its place. So let's recap back. Let me conclude and recap. Conclusion: there is deceit, illegal negotiation within the power structure in resource spaces where self-interest overrides environmental preservation. Corrupt oil companies exploit communities while our leaders look away. The narrative of silence is being promoted for the benefit of an individual or of a selected few. And that is why oil and water matters. Because, and to look at it symbolically, oil and water don't meet. Once oil, which is good, and water is good, when they meet, they all become contaminated. You can't use the oil anymore, and you can't use the water anymore. So when he's talking about these relationships that are not on even ground, that are between the subalternized, it's a kind of very colonial master-slave relationship. And he's kicking against it by bringing it to the fore. And then he talked about the lack of self-worth, nationalist spirit, and the struggle to maintain the division of society, talking about the haves and the have-nots, or to look at orthodox Marxism between the bourgeois class and the proletariat. So our leaders, now looking at the politics of the belly, are very concerned about themselves. They are individualistic in their administration, they are individualistic in their quest for powers, and they have negated not only the rule of law, but they have failed to embrace the collective population who are suffering the brunt of these decisions they are making. So Habila's Oil and Water is a protest novel in the line of environmental activism. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dominic. Thank you so very much for sticking to time. So we'll go to the next presentation, which I think is me. I think there's a kind of delay in what I'm saying, but let's hope it works. So let me just take it away. I'll try to speak for 15 minutes and then we can go to questions and responses. Thanks a lot, Dominic. So let me share my slide. Thank you. Okay. Hey, what am I doing? Just a moment, let me get this straight. Are you able to see the slide?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So, all right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Izu Ankwa. I should be sleeping. This is 5 a.m., almost 5 a.m., but it's so important that I'm here to speak with you, and I thank you so much for coming. So this morning, I'm supposed to speak about from jollof wars to taxi battles, but interestingly, it's an ongoing thing which I have not completed. So I decided to speak about something else. I hope you don't mind and you forgive me. What I'm going to speak about this morning instead is a work which is now, I think, will soon be released. It's part of a book that I completed recently, which just a chapter in that book. So I hope this works for us this morning. It's titled African Humor in Transcultural Spaces, Confronting the World One Joke at a Time. I'll just be quick with this land acknowledgement. I don't think we need that at this point. So I'm going to speak about historical context of African cultural productions. I'm also going to speak about emergent trends and dissemination patterns that we find with African cultural productions and transcultural globalized sites of joking. And then I may not get into doing these joke samples and analysis, but I'll go to my conclusion where I give my submissions about the thoughts I've had around African cultural production. Uh, okay, so let me just say that just say this. I am not a comedian. People have always asked me that. Are you a comedian? No, I'm just someone who studies comedians, and I've done that for quite some time now. So some people might find some of the expressions in the jokes answers offensive, so I have to apologize beforehand. But I'm not going to do the jokes samples at this point. I don't think we have the time for that. So talking about historical concepts, context, there's uh, hold on. I didn't ask that video to play, don't mind him. So, talking about the historical context of jokes. So, to give us this context, it's about joking in Nigeria, stand-up comedy. We all know about stand-up comedy and it's very popular. But we have this background from which it started on the continent. We have the one Sariki from Zaria. I think Dominic might be very familiar with that. We have this in Jakari. We have a lot of performances in traditional society where people perform jokes. There are a lot of joking traditions that we have. And my contention all the time is that some of these performances uh, largely influence the kind of stand-up comedy performances that we have on the continent now. And there's colonial influence in terms of when I talk about this in the past. So we have now stand-up comedy, we have dancing, we have theater, fiction, and stuff. But in the past, in most of our traditional communities, all these things were fused as performance. So we didn't have some of these genres. So the idea of stand-up comedy, the reason why we are not able to trace the origin of present-day stand-up comedy to the past could be because in the past, what qualified as jokes and joke performances in those past could have been translated into poetry or some other kinds of work in present day. That's some of the arguments I've reached out in the past. And then we see that we have a lot of these popular cultural productions across the continent. Especially in Nigeria, we have Nollywood. So stand-up comedy may not be Nigerian stand-up comedy may not be popular globally, but we find out that something like Nollywood has circulated and has gone far beyond uh, the the country. So we know what Nollywood is, so I'm not going to bother us with this. But what I'm going to try to bring out here is that Nollywood is something that has okay, Nollywood is something that has gone beyond the shores of the country and has advertised us. And this has culminated in what I call the soft power of the country and the continent itself. So Dominic was speaking about how uneven some of these relationships are, that we find ourselves disadvantaged in a lot of ways. But we find out that through popular culture, that a lot of African countries are becoming quite dominant. You see Afrobeats. I have students here in Canada who are very familiar with a lot of Nigerian singers. They may not even know the president of Nigeria or president of any African country, but they know these singers and they sing their songs. So that's a form of soft power. Growing up in Nigeria many years ago, we were familiar with R&B songs. We were familiar with Michael Jackson. We didn't know any Nigerian singer of any repute anyway. But today the reverse is the case, and we find out that in more ways than one, that some of the productions we have in little corners of Lagos and parts of Nigeria and parts of Africa are becoming very popular globally. So what I'm talking about is Africa and its diaspora is also, which is, I'm not just talking about Nigeria. People will refer to Africa, but this is a continent that has over 2,000 ethnic groups and languages. And we find out that we've had influences of slavery, colonization, and migration. And talking about the African diaspora, I think there's two major parts of the African diaspora. The first one is the historical diaspora, which is those whose parents or whose forebears were taken overseas as slaves in the past. And we have the more recent ones, people like me, people who started immigrating to Western nations in recent times. And they are the ones I'm interested in this work, because what I'm talking about is how their own performances with connection to the continent is also so when they are performing in the West, they're also relating the things they talk about to the continent itself. And their presence in the West is also a form of soft power in itself. So these are the people that we refer to as the contemporary migrations. I'll just jump this slide and talk about what I'm talking about is based on the concept of transculturality, which is had been developed by a couple of people. But it's about this transfer of cultures when people find themselves moving from one culture into another. It's not just about interculturality, it's about becoming somebody else, becoming Canadian, for instance, or becoming British, even though you have African origins. This kind of tenuousness in terms of belonging and unbelonging. So you find this new person who lives in this environment, who becomes this, he is an insider and also an outsider at the same person, this kind of fusion of differences in the belonging of one individual itself. So stand-up comedians also stand in this gap where they come from one culture, live in another culture, and they become both cultures and also not those cultures. So what I mean by that is that you take a comedian like Trevor Noah, for instance, who lives in America, who has become American, and he's in America, he's seen as South African, whereas in South Africa, he's seen as American to some extent. So you find this sense of belonging, unbelonging, in terms of some of the things that they find themselves doing. And in terms of Africa's spread, you find that Africa has a lot of things through online comedy. You find a lot of comedians online who are staying a lot of social media influencers like Kabilami, who is Senegalese, who lives in Italy. He was recently deported from the US for overstaying his visa or whatever. So you find that African themed subjects are so much on the internet that you cannot just ignore it. And these people are making a lot of headway. And one thing about Kabi is he's the most followed individual on TikTok. At some point, he had over 10 million or thereabout, 100 million followers, even more than any other person. He's the most followed person on TikTok. So you find a lot of memes. You find a lot of these memes coming from other African countries, which you also find that are profuse on the internet. And these are ways that Africa is also establishing a kind of soft power, a kind of influence on the way people think and on the way people see the continent itself. So coming to stand-up comedy, the first person that I talk about in terms of, there's a video, so I'm not going to play it because they contain some of the jokes I wanted to talk about. But I just want to concentrate on the individuals themselves. You look at Trevor Noah, for instance. Trevor Noah is very popular globally. Note that I'm not talking about comedians who are popular within Africa or those who are popular within Nigeria, but about comedians from Africa who are making impact across the world and who people are listening to because of the position they now sit in. So Trevor Noah was born in South Africa. He has a Swiss mother a Swiss father and a South African mother. And he was born during the apartheid era. He was host of the Daily Show, which actually made him very popular till 2023. Now he has a podcast and does a lot of things. And I think he's the most popular African comedian out there who is performing in English. He has a lot of jokes that talk about South Africa and also talk about the US where he lives. And you find in his performance, he has these strategies where his stage presence is the ability to be able to attract and hold audiences' attention, that stage presence. So when you are on stage, that you're able to capture and hold the attention of the people you are. You know, he does a lot of role playing where he goes into characters and plays the roles of different people, different roles of Africans, which he uses accents. He does Nigerian accent, Zambian accent, and different kinds of accents. And you find a lot of gestures, stage movement, and honesty. Now, honesty is a very important term when it comes to stand-up comedy because honesty is not that comedians don't make up stories. Honesty simply means that they have to tell the stories they made up in honest ways, in believable ways. Because if you do not believe a joke, it will not make you laugh. If somebody tells you a joke that you do not believe, somebody says, I just built a house in 2 days, I just built a skyscraper in 2 days, you'll be like, this person is crazy. But if somebody convinces you to believe that they actually built this house in 2 days, and then at the end of the day, they're like, look at you, you fool, then that's actually funny. So honesty is not that they don't lie or they don't, I don't like using the word lie, they don't make up stories, but the fact that they have to tell these stories in believable ways. And I also talk about stand-up comedy in this way, about what stand-up comedy does to individuals. You know, when you're performing stand-up comedy, you need to be brief to set up. You must be spontaneous. You create familiarity with the audience. You render successive jokes in, you know, whatever you say has to tally with the response of the audience. If the audience is not responding well, you change tack and go to something else. But what you see, the ones in white, they're also super important because comedians are judged solely by the amount of laughter they produce. If a comedian doesn't make people laugh, nobody will come to their performance anymore. I think it's the only art form that makes that kind of demand on anybody. And they have to produce new jokes for every performance, new jokes for every performance, because once you've had a joke, the second time it will not be as funny as the first time. So you can read a novel 10 times, you can watch a movie 15 times, you can read read poem as long as you want, but jokes, no. Oftentimes, the second time is just maybe because you have some colleagues that you want them to hear it for the first time. So the more you hear a joke, the more it doesn't make the same impact on you. So comedians have to evolve new ones or tell old ones in newer ways. And they have to, you know, to make people laugh at themselves. That's not an easy thing to do. You know, criticism itself is people don't take kindly to criticism, and then you're coming to make them laugh at themselves or to laugh at them. I don't think it's something that people like to do, but this is what comedians find themselves doing. Uh, the other thing that makes the work tricky is that they are not actually insulated from their art in any way because they are present in the production of their art. What I mean by that is that a novelist writes his work, gives it to you, you go read in your house, watch a movie in your house. The producer of the movie, you may not even know their names, but the comedian stands there and presents the work. And as they're presenting the work, because it's a kind of critical thing which makes people laugh at us and at other people, it makes people uncomfortable. And sometimes when they express some things, people think it's their personal opinion. You know, they take it that this is what they believe. I don't believe they do this or they do the other. But they are just making people laugh and they're creating these stories and they are actually acting out other people. That may not be their real selves. But because of that kind of being directly involved in their art, it also earns them a lot of criticism and a lot of disregard when people think comedians are serious people and all those things. But it's a very difficult thing to do. And they must necessarily, in order to amuse, which is another interesting part of stand-up comedy, because most things that make us laugh are not things that we consider nominal or things we consider normal. the things that make us laugh. You can't look at somebody who is well dressed and has good perfume, smells well, and is well polished, and then you start laughing. That doesn't make you laugh. But if somebody dresses well and then there's a hole in the shirt or something, so it's often something that we consider to be abnormal, to be irregular, to be grotesque, to be, those are the things that we consider funny, and that's how. Laughter comes from offense, because the person you're referring to will be offended by that, and you're laughing at the expense of this other individual. Sorry, I dwelt so much on that. Then this is another comedian who is known internationally. Her name is Jinaya Shere. Jinaya Shere is of Nigerian parentage. Her parents are both from Nigeria, but she's born in the UK, and she presently lives in the US. So she's performed severally, and this is somebody who also talks a lot about Nigeria, though sometimes some of the presentations she makes are negative. But you find that these people have to lean back on the African able to speak to their Western audiences. They have a lot of agency coming from that background, because they can carry joke representations that other people in their society cannot, because of that African. That's why they have to lean back into that African parentage, and talks about her mother and stuff. Sorry, I'm going to jump the video. And then this is another person called Arthur Simeon. Arthur Simeon was born in Uganda, lived in Uganda. He's now Toronto-based, moved to Canada in 2001. He came here to study, and he also talks about Uganda. He talks about the black male figure in Western spaces, which is an interesting thing, because he has a joke where he talked about being in the subway at 12 p.m. 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. and then returning from work, and then there's this white lady sleeping in the train, and they were the only people there. The fear, supposedly the stereotype of the fearful, the fearsome black man and stuff. And so they talk about this, and they lean back into speaking about some of these wonderful experiences they've had, because that's another thing. Some of the jokes they give are about their personal experiences and things they've seen themselves. Next is Ursula Carlson. Ursula Carlson, interestingly, I actually brought in this person. She lives in New Zealand, performs around Australia and New Zealand, and she's South African. And oftentimes people talk about Africa and they're thinking about Black people, but this is a white South African woman who moved to South Africa in 2006, who moved to New Zealand in 2006. And her jokes often is about being South African, talks about South Africa and living in South Africa. And she's part of the Netflix Comedians of the World. If you're interested in seeing her performances, and she's also somebody who is a heavyweight individual who talks about body sizes, and as a woman, a lesbian, and a lot of things that other her, make her to be different from other people, and then being South African also in that environment. She uses all these as leverage to speak about a couple of things. And the show has not been performing for some time. She is also born to Nigerian parents, born in the UK. She's an actress. She does a lot of things, and she's not been doing comedy for some time. But she's somebody who also leans back to speak about her Nigerianness in her comedy. So you find that in these works, you find this range of diversities in the people that come from Africa who perform. There's Salma Hindi, who is from Egypt. Her parents are from Egypt. She's born in Canada, and she now lives in the US. So you find that all these people have these interesting backgrounds, and they are Africans, to speak about the diversity of the continent itself. I like what Jinaya Shere once said. She said, "I am 4 of the 6 things Trump hates." She actually said this during Trump's first time. She's Black, gay, female, immigrant. One of the things going for me is that I'm not Muslim. And then Sama Hindi is Muslim. So you find that there are gradations of differences of diversities in terms of the belonging of these people. So let me sum up by talking about why I engaged this and the thing I talked about in my monograph. So we find that in this work that these comedians subvert and challenge stereotypes. In whatever they do, they challenge stereotypes, and they critique dominant norms and discourses, the disparity. Okay. Are you still hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay, oh, so sorry, it just went off. I didn't know what happened. So I'll just round up. I think it's my time running out. So disparaging single stories. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie talked about the danger of single stories. Well, you hear one story and you believe it. And I always tell my students, yeah, when your friend tells you what the other friend did, you are like, oh, we're going to kill that student, the other friend. And then you hear from the other friend and then you're confused. Who is right? Like they all sound right. So who is right here? And it's the single story because once you hear a story from one person, uh, that's it. I think there's an African adage that says that the story of the hunt will continue to favor the hunter until we hear the lion's side. So it's always the hunter that comes out to tell us how triumphant he was in the forest, but we don't hear from the game, the animal. So they provide critical reflection on the things that happen in society and they speak back and punch up. Punching up is that if you are down and you're punching up from there, you're telling people this is how you are making us feel in this society. And more importantly, they are humanizing Africa, throwing questions at people like, what do you know about Africa? What's the capital of Africa? Because they think Africa is a country. So, and then building community and solidarity for themselves. So how they do this, they co-opt the continent's Black folks' checkered histories. They speak about slavery, they speak about colonization, they speak about present-day issues, and some of the things that Dominic talked about, the ecological issues, things that people do in their countries, do not do in their countries when they come to Africa to do. They speak about this. They talk enlist intersectional identities, which is something I've talked about. There are different belongings. Some of them are Black, some of them are white, some of them are Muslim and stuff, and some of them based on their sexuality and preferences and stuff. They use all these things as their background in speaking to some of these things. And then they create opportunities for communal laughter. So in speaking about this, they make society to laugh at itself and perhaps from there find some kind of harmony if possible. I don't know whether that works. And then melding multiple diaspora experiences. What I mean by that is that I talked about the historical and the contemporary diaspora. They bridge this. So the diaspora is diaspora and some of the renditions they do. So I have to thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much. So I will end the stop sharing. Do we have any other presenter? Yes or no? No. We do not, I guess. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Yes. See.
Okay. So thank you so very much, Ning. So let me just doing this chair and presentation is not an easy job. Let me just round up from what Dominic spoke about. Yams do not sprout amulets, ecological relations, and underbelly politics in the global south. Spoke about a lot of things which I found really interesting from using Shinka's work about that Biku talk about oil and water by Helen Habila and talking about ecology. I was really impressed with the idea of the underbelly politics and the politics of the belly, which he spoke about. Belly politics of the belly for individual benefit and not for the community, and politics of the underbelly when it's exposed. And talking about the things that Habila speaks about ecological disaster in the Niger Delta, the oil spills, the abandoned oil wells which poison waters and make ghost towns out of fishing villages. And then talking about no political presence or help in these communities and the disparity in the ways that we speak to all this. And I think there's a mention of post-colonial criticism that you mentioned, which I found really brilliant. Thank you so much, Dominic. So, and to the rambling I just did with my sleepy self about the stand-up comedy. So I don't know if anybody have questions or comments or to tell us to shut up at some point. So let me open it up to all of us. Yeah, well, somebody in the room should identify the people that will speak. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I saw a hand, but I don't know if you're waving or raising a hand.
You should be right hands.
Yeah, there's a hand behind. There's a hand behind. Oh, it's freezing.
So we have four. I mean, we have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Give us numbers so that yes.
Okay, so
Just
one,
pick anybody. Pick anybody.
2, 3, 4. Yeah. No, 5.
Fine. Yeah, so thank you very much. Basically, so I think one of my comments will be for the only physical presenter.
Okay.
So thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Aboy, right? Dominic. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So I wanted to, sorry, help me with this. As an extension to your work, I wanted to suggest this to you
Thank you very much.
by Miriam Lang and co. It's titled
Let me just snap it.
The
That's
Geopolitics.
the new diary.
Yes, the geopolitics of green colonialism.
Okay.
And some of the offshoot of what you discussed this morning can be found there. So that is one. Number two is that considering the emerging dimensions of green colonialism and the politics of underbelly
Yeah.
in the global south, such as greenwashing,
Yes.
carbon offsets, which I noted down here, is often manipulated by political actors, which reinforces the unequal power relations we're trying to look at in the guise of sustainability. And also another dimension is the term just transition. Let's remove the just now. Energy transition. Let's just say energy transition with the advent of electronic vehicles, CNG buses and vehicles and all of that. And that in itself, again, reinforces some sort of inequality in the sense that who develops these EVs and the CNG buses, not largely the global south. It still comes from the global north. So that in itself could be another dimension of neocolonialism and imperialism. So, that now pushed me to say that how do we use the ecology relations and the underbelly politics to explain or understand these new trends? You understand?
Yeah.
And again, another thing that comes to mind is also the new trend that we are currently seeing in a space like Nigeria, which is the ungoverned resource exploration. Ungoverned resource exploration in the sense of I come from the southwest. I live in Ile-Ife, and all across that Ife Ilesha road, you see series of sites of gold mining. And then there have been a whole lot of reports of who is in charge of this, where is the gold going to, who ordered this, the political actors, the businesses, we don't know. The amount that is made from this exploration, we don't know. The amount that goes from this exploration into the national treasury, we don't know. And a whole lot of that. So that's why I termed it to be the ungoverned space of resource exploration, which is still part of the underbelly. So how do we use all of these ecology relations and the underbelly politics to explain these ungoverned spaces? And then finally, is to say that when we take all of this, what is the end point for your research? What do you want us to do? Having observed or discovered that there is an underbelly activity going on in some of these environmental issues. What is the endpoint for the community? What is the endpoint for the people? What is the endpoint for country and the entire global south? I think if you're able to look at some of these issues, it will be great. Thank you.
Okay, hold on. Thank you so much. Can you hold on, Dominic?
Yeah.
Let's take all the questions. Let's take like 3 or 4 questions together before we give answers, so it doesn't turn to a one-on-one. And can we make them brief so that you just ask the question straight because we have 30 minutes to stop. Yeah. So next question, please. Just take note of them. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed the two presentations. I particularly like the fact that the titles kind of function things, and my question is to the second presenter from Jollof Wars and the content. I enjoyed every part of your presentation, and I like the fact that it draws from everyday life. Speaking of media, speaking of comedy, and the Jollof Wars, I followed it. I know how when the transit battles and all of that. You see, what this kind of talk or analysis do for society generally, that it helps us to see beyond the ordinary. But I seem to have missed the crux of your argument. Like, what is the thesis that you're drawing out from this analysis? If you can, just point that out very clearly. I'm sure it will be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Who else has a question?
Thanks a lot. Yeah, next person.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
There's somebody behind you. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much to the two presenters. My question is geared towards the many parts. Thank you very much. My work is basically on environmental like history. So my work is just similar to what said with beats. My question is that don't you think that the lack of the Nigerian what's it called? Let me use this agent itself, like in the sense that Nigerian government have failed to do the needful. That is why these guys come in and do whatever they can do. Because you said that back then they can't do those things there. They can't degrade their land. Yeah. They can't pollute their land, which is very, very, very true. But while here, they would do that. And for me, this is lack of accountability because the government have wanted to put those mechanisms on ground to like say, okay, when you do this, there are penalties, probably because of the series of military we've had. So now, my own question is that don't you think that lack of government agency, government responsibility is causing this whole environmental degradation, environmental pollution we are witnessing? Thank you very much.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I stand on all the questions that have been asked. Dominic, that was quite a good performance. I'm a philosopher, so when you speak, what comes to mind is how Europe underdeveloped Africa. But we also have a say. I have a saying, and I think there's another book that says how Africa underdeveloped Africa. So the question one of the aspects you need to add to your work is, for instance, the role of local players in this. Because you find out that sometimes the traditional leaders are called into play and then they do something else. So let me just keep that one short. For Unzo, Izu, Wanko. Okay, I have quite a lot of questions.
Izu, yeah.
Okay. So for your paper,
go ahead, man.
For instance, your title was not really clear. I know it's something about African humor, and then it wasn't clear whether you were analyzing the comedy or the biographies and profiles of the comedians. And how these comedies influence the identity. For instance, I work in the area of identities, and one of the things that comes to me in your presentation is the fact that, because you say it's a work in progress, so you really need to also look at how this comedy impacts the psyches of Africans, because you find out that people have been able to survive, just especially in this part of the world, just making a joke out of the whole things, because they have no control over it, so they can't turn it to a joke. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's start taking answers so that we don't get too many questions. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, then we can take answers. Yeah, go ahead, ma.
This is actually directed to James Aboy. And I want to stand on what the last commentator or what she said about Africans underdeveloping Africa. So another perspective, because at times some of us come from that area and we've done certain investigation in that area. I remember going to Warri 2 years ago. We had to go to one of the cocoa villages and all that, and you realize, and then when you, I want to refer to Izu Nwankwo's analogy of the hunter and the hunted. Everybody has the narrative to speak. When you also ask, because we had to interview some of these oil and gas people, and they tell you that yes, these things are hazardous, these things happen, and then they want to do something, but the locals themselves say, don't do this. All we need is money, and they release money, and at the end of the day, you don't see the money. Are you with me? So you don't get to see, you don't know what the money is coming to. And each time we go there, all we are hearing, we need to do this, our fishes are dead, this is dead, and all that. So a whole lot of things are playing. So that in as much as we know that, because there's been a lot of demonization of the exploiters, and I'm not saying that what they are doing is totally correct or totally wrong, but that we should also think of the local actors that play, that resist any form of trying to do any other thing. All they want is the monetary reward. Just give us the money and go. And the money is released. Now, giving the money, does it claim their conscience? That is the exploiter's conscience. That's the question entirely. But after the money is even being released, who gets the money? The money is just being seen in the environment and the ecology. So there's a whole lot of parties. That's just the comment I want to also consider the internal issues. Thank you.
Can we take the answers? Sorry, ma. Sir, I can't see who is raising hand. Just let's take the answers and then we come back, okay? Thank you so very much. Dominic, did you get all the questions? I can highlight them for you if you didn't.
Yeah, I did. But you put that.
Okay. Yeah, the first one says, how do we use the ecology relations and underbelly politics to understand the new trends in terms of EV and self, I guess. And also talked about ungoverned resource exploitation, mentioning Ileife and the people who are exploring gold and stuff, who gets this money. And then asked you, what's the end point for your research? That's the first question. You can go ahead.
Yeah, my friend here mentioned the new trends in the new auto industries that use car battery and all that. You see, this is the argument we are making. These resources will be pushed and they will be pressured. There will be more pressure on them because if before the battery is just needed to power the phone, now we need bigger batteries to power almost everything that is moving, whether it's static motion in terms of your phone. Your battery is going down, but your phone is in one place. So it's static motion. And then we have the motion that is moving at the same time. So it will pressure and also add to this environmental degradation. But if we are able to tackle the politics of the belly, for instance, it will be to our advantage. Any country that has oil or fuel, oil for instance, and there are wars and people need this fuel, oil, and some people could not access it. The country that can produce it can choose its price and make money from it and put it in the right place. It's not that we are not in the knowledge of having local actors in this. The local actors are the ones actually perpetuating the politics of the belly that I'm talking about. You talked about whether the locals have agency. They do, but what kind of, the team also has an agency. But in what direction is this agency being used? Is it towards the negative or towards the positive? You know, worse than a coward is a coward with power. Because while you are thinking the man with power is going to save you in terms of crisis, but unfortunately he doesn't have the heart for the fight, then you can't even save yourself. But if you knew you are with somebody that is weak, you will all man for himself. you might get yourself armed for protection and all that. So we find ourselves tied up in this argument. And you said, how do we use the ecological relation and underbelly politics, as we said, which I just answered now. The gold mining, like you made mention, people that are mining those the gold you see. There's a proverb in our folklore that when you see a bird dancing in the middle of the road, know that his drummers are not far from the bush. These
It's in the
people
bush.
are not mining in absentia. Okay? They have gone to a local chief and taken permission. And the local chief have told the next in command of the percentage he's bringing. So there's a whole chain. That's what I'm talking about, the corruption of what? The underbelly. And I mentioned that the corruption of the belly is the one that's individual just for my self-satisfaction. But you know, when something goes belly up, it has become something of embarrassment and disgrace. That's when you see underbelly. So there's a double metaphor there. Politics of the belly, when it gets exposed into a shameful state, it becomes politics of the underbelly. We also are involved in the argument. So someone asked, after these findings, what do we supposed to do with all of this? Actually, in literature, we don't give recommendation. We expose and leave it. But we can make an argument to show where we are standing, but it will not come as a form of recommendation. But I'll still answer to say that there's the need to conscientize. There's a need to bring awareness about the dangers of these things. Like my fellow presenter asked a question about the locals getting very involved in all of these things, and they will ask for money instead of the cleaning. Even in the national budget, there's an allocation for all these oil producing states. There's a percentage which is inclusive of this cleaning. We should begin to hold our leaders accountable. We begin to ask questions. You should not want it. Their children don't school there. Their children don't live there. These leaders are in Abuja. The oil wells are in the south. So if there's a disaster, oil spill like it happened the other time in the Gulf of Mexico in the US, it's those people that are close by that these things affect. So we will have to question, maybe if there are policies that you cannot live outside your constituency and your children cannot survive or school outside your constituency, you now know if there's any argument on slow deaths, you will be involved. And if there's an uprising in the form of environmentalism of the poor, you will have to partake in it. Probably we'll begin to creep back to our sensibilities and doing the right thing. I will end with this. There's a question here. They said the role of the local players. And I said they are the owners of the underbelly politics. Those local players. Some of these things don't happen in absentia. Like we know in Nigeria, there's the concept of this godfatherism. I have traveled myself to Gusau. I've gone to these ecological disastrous sites where they are mining gold and all that. And there are sites that they close from the masses. The government closes it against, because the masses started digging by themselves and they closed it. There are soldiers there. But inside, the mining sites and mining is going on. And then there is also the banditry in Gusau, Zamfara state, where you find out that there's a state of unrest just to move certain people in certain locations, so that when they abandon these places, some of these people whose farms have some of these things, before they come back, it has been dug, it has become a mining site. You can't even identify which is your farm, because you can see a whole acre being cut down into sizes and holes and all that. So when we come to look about these who are responsible and all that, sometimes, unfortunately, like the money issue, we sometimes collide or connive with the outside actors and the inside actors. But it boils down to the idea of class and social hierarchy or stratification. So those that have the bourgeoisie permit me to say the bourgeois are bourgeoisizing the proletarians, and the proletarians have nothing else to do than to fold their hands. Sorry, bro. I have to use language in that context. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. I like the idea of bourgeoising. I've made notes of bourgeoising, how we have been bourgeoised in this state. Yeah, thank you so much. So I have two questions or two comments mostly. So the first one is about my thesis statement. So at the beginning, I apologize that my paper wasn't about the Jollof Wars, but which is an interesting thing I would have loved to write about because it's something that what I was going to do with the Jollof, what I'm doing with the Jollof Wars, because that's what I'm writing, is to look at how people have used social media to perform, do a lot of self-performance and speak to issues within society. And in the work itself, it started from the past, from the BBA, the Big Brother Africa, the Ghana Must Go of the 1980s and stuff. So that's where the work started itself. But this present one I did today is about stand-up comedian, African diaspora stand-up comedians. It's not the Jollof Wars. So I hope that answers the first question. The second one talks about identity. Where is it again? Speaking about identity and the psyche of Africans. Of course, I agree that comedy helps people to cope with situations. And my emphasis was to look at how these people are also more like our representatives when they speak about some of these things. They also use comedy to cope with their own experience because living in some of these societies as a Black person with the history of Blackness and stuff like that is not an easy thing. So they use this comedy to also cope. It's a coping mechanism for them. It's also a subversion tool, something they use to subvert some of the things that people believe about Black people. So it's a good number. It's also related to identity in so many ways, which is something I talked about because you talk of belonging. How do they identify? Do they identify as Africans or as Canadians or as Americans or as Europeans? And you find that these are people who straddle multiple identities. They are not just Africans, they also live in different spaces. I hope I've been able to answer your questions. I think we have 7 minutes left. Do we get an extension for starting late? I don't think we do. So there's somebody raising hand at some point. I couldn't see the person. Can you turn the camera? There's somebody raising hand.
There's two of us. Yes, two possible. I'm trying to.
Okay.
Yeah. So hi everyone.
Can we have two short questions? Yeah.
Yes, it's a short. Well, comments generally. Yes.
Okay.
So so during your I love your presentation. I love both presentation. It was excellent. So these are just general comments. The first one is about how a lot of this this segregation is happening here, right? And over there it's happening, it's not happening. And my, comment to everyone, I grew up in the US, but here in Nigeria and also in Europe for 24 years. So a lot of this conversation that we're having here is the same that we're having in different communities back there as well. However, the pollution are quite different, right? But the pollution is going on. Flint, Michigan still does not have water for their communities, which I know you also follow. Yeah. So I just want to kind of mention that this is a global problem, but with different local implications, and there's resistance between different communities that are also trying to figure out how they can hold corporation accountable. In our sense, in here we have lobbyists who work with the representative corporation. It's within the government that are also relaxing a lot of policy that's supposed to uphold the accountability portion of the conversation. So what I'm trying to do is just kind of make us see, which I know many of us already do, that this is a very global problem, but every implication is different. And we are all dealing with this neocolonialism, all these isms, the same way, really, right? And it's just so not just to cloud us about their solidarity in what we're talking about, is what I'm trying to say. And the other one is about local actors being agents and such. We're always going to have that, but there are also the young people who are also fighting against all of this, but we don't hear their voices. We don't think about how they are resisting. So I think part of your work, of course, is a huge body of work, which I'm not familiar with. But part of that work is also looking at what does those resistance look like.
right? And how can it be amplified in different ways? What can we do as communities to actually support those kind of movements that we don't again hear about in the media, but it's actually going on a much larger scale? And then, yeah, issue of environmental racism, absolutely. Issue with the genetic consequences of a lot of business. So the part of community that I work with in Fresno County, you would think I'm in my mother's village in Oga, right? When I, was posted by the State Department, literally, but we don't see that in the media, right? What you see about the US is quite different. But they are going through those same issues. A lot of women are giving birth with different fetal deformities because of because of this toxic in the soil, the pesticides and all these things. I just want to kind of mention that it is a very global problem. We look at implication, and I'm so glad that you mentioned water running in this book, right? Yes, about gender development, but we are all complicit. We are all the phone that I'm using. Where is it in mind? Like in the country, you're laughing for real, right? Yeah. Right. We are all complicit, but the question is like, what can we do in each of our corners to address what we're doing? Because it's not going to be perfect. We have to hold them accountable. They know what they're doing. What they're doing with spilling things, they can't do the same thing in the US. They'll get away with it until they're being sued for multi-millions of dollars, and there's going to be winning, right? But here, where's the power, right? Yeah. So it's different. So it's not like. Anyway, but that's what I'm going to say. But thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other comments? I think we have 3 minutes left.
Okay, my questions
how many minutes?
By the tyrant of time.
Okay.
No. Very small, very short.
Go ahead,
question.
sir.
The tyrant of time and the hegemony of the chairperson. Well, I have one question and I have a very short comment too. Where I enjoyed the presentations and I have to commend the presenters. Thank you very much for this panel. My question goes to Dominic.
Yes.
In your numerous terms and concepts that you talk about patrimoniality.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, while you are describing, I was wondering what you mean by patrimoniality, or you want to talk about Richard Joseph's prebendalism, which actually suits your explanation. Please, I would like that you explain that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then I also have these comments about us trying not to have convoluted ideas of this north-south dichotomy. That we should, in your presentation, try as much as possible to have a clearer position, because I can see you speaking from several angles, hearing several voices from here, there, and everywhere, discussing politics of the belly, underbelly politics. Those ideas look jumbled. And it also follows the fact that in your submission, I think, going by what my beautiful sister has also said, that we should make sure that we follow something that Folishonika said sometimes during the negritude, where he said, the tiger does not proclaim its tigritude. I think it is no longer. Yes.
Yeah.
No. It was Shoyinka that said so. Leopold said that Senghor they were in charge of negritude there, but Shoyinka didn't join them. And he said the tiger does not proclaim its tigritude. It is time for us, Africa, to begin to look for how to change our fortune and sit down and look and chart a course for ourselves. Several countries of the Asian tigers have done it. They never go about saying we are this, we are that, look at us, we are strong, we are this. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think our time is up, but do you have to answer, Dominic?
If they will listen.
No, if you want to go ahead if you want.
And the issue is, I don't know the next set of people who are going to use the room if they're here.
Yeah. So yeah.
I now just answer what you need to answer.
Okay. To start with, he asked what patrimonialism is, and it's a form of governance in which the ruler governs on the basis of personal loyalty, which are derived from patron-client relations, personal allegiance, kin ties, and combinations.
Right.
It is closely related to corruption, opportunism, machine politics. Machine politics is like you just come with money on the election day and say 5,000 for anybody that voted for me. You get a clean-cut record. So that's what we mean by that. And then it continues to weaken the government's capacity to deliver. You know, our father said it was his turn, and you had to arrive at his turn.
Right.
So we had a clear cut of something like that, and even in the giving of ministerial appointment and all that, it's all part of this big picture of the underbelly politics. That was why I brought it. You talked about we taking our futures in our hands. Shakespeare said, men are sometimes the masters of their fate. That's in Julius Caesar. And I agree with you. But remember, in the post-colonial theories I used, I quoted Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak. Can the Salvatan speak? And I made mention that it is not the physical speech. It is not you telling me, talking to me. It's you giving me space and giving me a platform on which, when I speak, what I say matters. We want to admit people who are fearless, that will be on the decision-making tables to make this effect that you are talking about. But you see, youth leader in Nigeria is 50 or 60 years. So where does youth stand? You know? So you never, we might not get there. Thank you very much.
Let's stop. I think the next session would start soon. So thank you so very much, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and hope to see you again. All right, thanks, Dominic. All right.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah.
All right, bye.